guys, it's Megan. Welcome back to the library and another video today. Today we're going to talk about all the books I read in the month of October. So just before we get started, I did read 7 books this month, and I had one of my biggest disappointments of the year, and I also had one of my biggest surprises of the year that I wound up giving 5 stars, and is now one of my favorite books, and I totally didn't expect. Of course, with this being like spooky season, I tried to read mysteries and thrillers and horror. In fact, was everything I read? No, I did actually know I read a couple just straightforward fantasies too, but most of the rest were like mystery, thriller, and horror. So the first book I read was The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and this has been super popular, I know, on like TikTok and BookTube and in my school library as well. So this book is the first of a trilogy. You probably have already heard what it's about, where I guess it's sort of like the movie Knives Out, which I've never heard of until now when people keep comparing it to that. I've never seen it. I have no idea what it's about, but apparently it's similar, and it's about a girl who is suddenly she finds herself the heir to a fortune that she doesn't even know the man who left her this money, and she has to be whisked off to Texas to live in his mysterious mansion that is filled with like mysterious clues and puzzles and riddles, and she's kind of like one of those puzzles and riddles that the family has to solve, because the 4 grandsons of this billionaire also live in this mansion, and I think there's going to be eventually like a love triangle between 2 of them. Sorry, there's literally this old lady, like super old lady, wearing sunglasses, staring at me. It's like she thinks I'm talking to myself. Like, what does she think I'm doing? She's just looking at me in the parking lot. She won't stop staring at me. Okay, I'm just gonna keep talking and pretend like this is not super weird. So she has to live with these siblings, these 4 boys, and she has to live in this house for a year. And of course, they don't like the fact that they didn't receive any inheritance money from their very rich grandfather, or very little. So that's pretty much what this is about. And it was not full of the riddles and clues and mystery that I thought it was gonna be. In fact, I don't know how they made it kind of boring. Like, not much was really happening. There wasn't even really much romance, so honestly it wasn't very mysterious, and it wasn't very romantic either. And I wound up giving this book 2.75 stars, which is very weird, but I know that lady. Oh my gosh, she's a lady that sometimes works in the library. I hope she's not coming in here. Oh no, she might be coming in here. Okay, well, let's just keep talking. If you see a lady come in, you'll know that it's her. If she walks in behind me, and she'll probably ask me what I'm doing, but we're just gonna keep going with the flow here. So I gave it 2.75 stars. I did not actually very much enjoy the book. In fact, I actively kind of disliked it, so that's why I gave it less than 3 stars. Needless to say, I will not be continuing with that trilogy. Next comes my 5-star, my big surprise. Let's just go ahead and do it. It was Slade House by David Mitchell. There we go. He also wrote Cloud Atlas, which I'd heard of but didn't know anything about. So my sister-in-law gave me this last fall season, and I decided to save it because it said it was like a haunted house kind of story. And I think honestly, the less you know about it going into it, the better. But what I will say is that yes, it starts out as like a haunted house kind of ghost story, told over the span of many years, with different characters kind of in each time period going into this haunted house. But what it doesn't tell you on the back, and what I hope is not a spoiler, is that it turns kind of sci-fi. I expected it to be, just kind of a straightforward like horror or something paranormal, but it's not really paranormal because it's actually explained. And so if you don't like explanations for paranormal things that seem to be happening, if you just want it to actually be ghosts or something, then maybe this isn't the book for you, because there is an explanation. It very much reminded me of Piranesi because it's super weird. You're kind of confused until you start sort of figuring out little by little what's going on, getting more hints and clues until the end, where the whole mystery is kind of explained to you. So, and the workings behind it. So if you like Piranesi but want it kind of scarier, that's really what this is. At least that's what I felt. But anyway, I absolutely loved it. It's very short. I read it in one day. And I think if you tried to read the book Dead Silence because you wanted a horror sci-fi and you didn't actually find it very scary, this is the book you should read instead, because it is horror and sci-fi, and it's definitely scarier than the other one, especially at the beginning when like literally little children are disappearing. But it gets less scary towards the end as you start to understand what's going on. But I liked that sci-fi aspect of it myself. I gave this one 5 stars. It's a new all-time favorite, and I honestly cannot wait to read it again. Next is my biggest disappointment. Let's just go ahead and do this one. I wound up giving this next book 2.5 stars. Apparently I gave it less than The Inheritance Games, which that's pretty bad. So I actively did not enjoy my time with this book, but I could not give it just 2 stars because of how I felt about the other ones in the series. So it's the 3rd one out of 4 in a series, and it's The Hod King by Josiah Bancroft. Everyone said how good this one was, and people also said the second one, Arm of the Sphinx, was good, and I loved it. So my history with this series is interesting because the first one, Sinless of Sins, I thought was fine. It was like a 3-star. It was not as good as I expected it to be. But I went ahead and continued with the series in hopes that it got better, and it did. The second one was amazing. I gave it like 4.5 stars. Could not wait to continue. So this one I maybe had too high hopes for because I loved the second one, and everybody talked about how amazing this one was, that it was the best of the series. And I was so bored. I was so bored. I know it focused on a lot of the other side characters, which, I mean, I like the side characters and all, but I just didn't feel like they had enough to do, if that makes any sense. It was all kind of centered around just like one plot, whereas I felt like in book 2, Arm of the Sphinx, they were having to go from like one clue to another thing and then to another thing. And there was like a lot going on, and there just wasn't very much going on in this, especially for the book to be really, really thick. It was much bigger even than the second one. They're getting progressively larger. In fact, the 4th one in the series, The Fall of Babel, just came out, I think like about a year ago, and it is the biggest in the series, and I hear really mixed reviews about that one. So either I won't like it either, and I'll only like the second book in the entire series and that's it, or maybe it's like alternating. I liked, 2 and 4 and I didn't like 1 and 3. I don't know. We'll find out. I guess I'll read book 4. Next is a strange one, literally strange, because I read Strange Academy First Class, which is the first of a graphic novel series. And it was pitched to me by a lady from the public library who came to school here to talk about books, new books that had just come out with our students. And I wouldn't say it's like brand new, I think it's a couple years old, but this was pitched to me as Hogwarts, but with like Marvel characters. So I was totally on board. I have to say I did enjoy it. I gave it 3.5 stars, but I felt like the pages had way too much going on. Like it was very just distracting. It's very colorful. There's like tons of stuff to look at. So it actually took me a really long time. I think it took me like a week. I think I wrote it down. Oh no, I put it on here like 2 days. Apparently it only took me 2 days to read it, but it felt like a lot longer because I felt like I kept having to stop and look at all the pictures and trying to see everything. And eventually I think I just gave up almost looking at the pictures and just read the words so that I could see the plot. But it was interesting. Each of the characters had kind of a different like power or ability. It was like almost like X-Men kind of basically, or like, like I said, like at a magic school like Hogwarts. But the characters were not very developed yet. They were just sort of stuck in there. So hopefully as the series goes on, the characters get a bit more developed. But my favorite part was actually the dialogue. I thought it was very realistic the way they talk to each other. It's very modern. It sounds like teenagers today, and I didn't expect that from a graphic novel. Like it's very modern. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really funny and witty. So yeah, I gave it 3.5 stars, and I will probably continue with the series. Then I read a very, very forgettable one. So if I was doing the Jeremy Johns rating for these, this next one would be forgettable in T-minus like 1 minute. And it was Magic Lies and Deadly Pies by Misha Pop. It doesn't have a vowel unless I typed it wrong. MSHA, or maybe it's with an I and I left it out. But anyway, it'll be here on the screen. This was like an adult, like cozy mystery. I was just kind of in the mood for another little cozy mystery because I really enjoyed Finley Donovan is Killing It, and I think I wanted something similar. And this one was about food, so I was like, ooh, I'll try it. And I'd heard Kayla from Books and La liked it pretty well, so I tried it. It was very forgettable, very meh. Honestly, I don't even remember too much of what it was about. I read it over the course of it took me 3 days actually to listen to the audiobook, even though it wasn't very long. It's technically the first in a series. I think it's called is it the Deadly Pies series? I can't remember, or something like that. But anyway, I will not be continuing with this series because, it was just fine. I honestly don't know where else it could go from here because there was already like a little romance in it and stuff. So I don't know. It was there. 2 more. So then I read a book that I've been anticipating to read for a long time, like years, because I'd read another book by the same author and loved it. So I've been wanting to read Night Film by Marisha Pessl, but it's so long. The audiobook was like 23 hours or something. It was really, really, really long. And it's also mixed media, and it had like pictures, it had transcripts of interviews, and it had websites and things inserted in there. So I would listen to the audiobook, and then when I realized I was coming across some sort of mixed media page, I would open the physical book and look at it, because I do own the physical book too. My sister-in-law, was it my sister? No, I think I bought this one used at a bookstore a long time ago. But I had read Neverworld Wake, which is actually a young adult kind of sci-fi thriller thing by the same author, and loved it. It's one of my favorite young adult books of all time from any genre. And so I've been wanting to read her 2 adult books, which are this one and then Special Topics in Calamity Physics, which it was her first novel. But this one sounded super interesting because it was about this like elusive director that no one really knows much about. His last name was Cordova. I already forgot his first name. Anton? I can't remember. Stanislas. There we go. Stanislas Cordova. It's been a while since I read it. But anyway, he's like this reclusive director that made like super gory, like terrible, not just even gory, but just like even the themes and what was happening in the story was super just awful, like stuff happening to children and things. And so eventually his movies weren't even shown in theaters. theaters. It was so bad, like not even beyond X-rated apparently, or NC-17. So instead they were shown underground, literally sometimes like in the Paris catacombs, there'd be like secret screenings of them and things. And the main character is actually an investigative journalist whose career was basically ruined years ago because he accused Cordova of doing something bad, and they said no, that's like slander or libel, whichever one it was. And he got in trouble and kind of ruined his reputation. Well, now this director, who's much older, he had a daughter that was 24 years old. Her name was Ashley Cordova, who grew up, you can imagine what her life must have been like if she grew up in this, crazy family. But she just committed suicide, or at least so they think. So he decides to investigate to see if anything going on with the dad is linked to her suicide or something, or just if there was anything going on that he could finally get this guy and make his comeback as a journalist. And that just sounded so interesting to me. And the first, I'd say maybe 3/5 of this book is a little long, and some parts are unnecessary. And it's like one clue leads to another clue, which leads to another clue, but they are solving nothing in the middle. It's just a bunch of clues built up on each other with no resolution to them. And you're like, okay, we need some sort of resolution to something, or I don't even want to keep reading. But it was enough to keep me going for sure. And then the ending, I think, was satisfying for the most part. It's not quite what I expected, but also because the buildup is so much that you're just like, there's got to be a big twist. And there wasn't really the big twist. There was one twist that I actually did see coming, but it wasn't really fully explained like I thought it was gonna be. So, I was actually proud of myself for predicting that twist, though. Maybe it was obvious, I don't know. But I guess I'm not usually a mystery thriller reader, until this year. So when I do predict it, I'm like, yeah, I did that. I bet nobody else saw that coming. And then probably like everyone sees it coming. But anyway, I gave it 4 stars. I don't know that I'd ever read it again, but it sure was interesting, and I definitely would recommend it. And finally, I read Over My Dead Body by Sweeney Boo, which is a YA graphic novel. I read another graphic novel, and this one's actually kind of long. It was 240 pages for a graphic novel. Yeah, I gave it 3 stars. It is a standalone, which, that's kind of interesting for something a little different. And I just realized I have a meeting that I'm supposed to be at in like 3 minutes. Oh my gosh, it was good. It's like Hogwarts meets the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. So if that sounds good, read that. It's about like witches and witchy stuff. And anyway, I've got to go because I have a meeting, and I will talk to you guys later. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and yeah, like and subscribe, all that good stuff. Okay, bye.